how do you see Joe and I live in person? That is an awesome question. Coming up, Conjuration, November 11th, 12th, and 13th. We will be there doing all kind of fun stuff. How do you see Kurt live in person? You go to vobykurt.com and look at his Bands in Town page, and you can see all his tour dates because there are going to be a lot coming up in the next few months.
I'll be appearing in Montreal at the end of November.
And go on. I'm not exaggerating. Between now and the first of the year, Homie goes on tour.
A little bit, but yeah. I'll be appearing in Worcester, Massachusetts this weekend, and then I'll be appearing in Montreal, Canada, at the end of November for a concert up there, and then another Christmas concert in mid-December. But yeah.
And plenty of TikTok appearances, I'm sure, like last year.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, how do I? That's a really cool promotional twist, I think. I'm patting myself on the back. There we go. All right. How do I decide how much computer to buy? So you're talking a little bit pre-show. I'm probably by the end of the year when I get some bonuses, invest in a better computer because that's the only thing I can figure is messing up the broadcast. And twice tonight already, it's kind of gone out a little bit. So I'm going to take care of that, right? But you guys, I'm sure you've built computers in the past. I know you buy computers, but I like to try to future-proof for at least 5 years. And that means for future-proof for me is this kind of being able to stream and play video games. It doesn't have to be on the highest setting or the biggest, baddest game, but Call of Duty is kind of the measure. Be able to play Call of Duty on medium settings for the next couple of years. That's kind of my future-proofing. So how do you guys decide? Is it budget first? Is it need? What do you think?
For me, it's definitely budget first. And what you can actually do if you like Reddit like I do, there's a subreddit called Build Me a PC, and you can say, hey, this is what I'm going to use it for. This is my budget. What can you find me? And they'll give you some really good suggestions. And
they just go to town on it. They don't ask for anything in return.
No, you just post it there, and these are people who So you've never played D&D, right? Not really. You've played it a little bit. Okay. So there's a thing in D&D where especially DMs, they love making characters that they never get to play. Same thing with this subreddit where even though they're not going to be playing the PC, they love just theorizing what's possible with a given budget and different constraints.
It really is theory crafting, right?
Yes.
It's kind of just the same thing.
and so this is what they love. There was a I watch a YouTuber called Linus Tech Tips. A bunch of people know him. Fairly recently, he went on Facebook and found a whole bunch of people who would build custom PCs, and there was one specifically that he didn't charge any kind of fee to put it together. The only charge was the parts, and that was the cost of the PC that he made for him. He's like, I just like building PCs, and so he does this service basically for free. For this particular person, they gave him a budget, and he said, okay, this is what I can do for you with that constraint. They okayed the build that he suggested, and when they pieced it out, they're like, yeah, he's not making any money off of this. That is how much it cost him. And so there are people that this is their hobby. This is what they love to do.
Yep. And I've gone back and forth. I bought retail and I've made my own or built my own. And like this last one, I built my own. But I went by budget. I said, I have this amount of money to spend. And then I did a bunch of my own research. I didn't go to that subreddit, but I did go, okay, if I know that I want this generation or newer CPU, and then I started Googling, okay, what's the best bang for the buck? Let's say we're talking like Intel 9th generation, is it better to go that, or is it better to go AMD equivalent? and depending on when you research and the year, it may make a difference. And so there's that. But also, like for me, I wanted to be able to virtualize and have a discrete graphics card. And so that was all part of that. It's like, okay, so best bang for the buck. And I even would go budget graphics card and then work up from there. And it tends to work out. It's just a little bit more legwork. For you, if Call of Duty is your benchmark, really, then I would spend
computer, right.
Well, and nowadays though, going to a faster CPU isn't as effective as it used to be. So I would spend more money on the graphics card, and then a non-starter is you got to have at least 32 gig of RAM, and you got to have SSDs. I mean, that's where you're going to get the best bang for the buck, regardless. So,
yeah, and you can actually, if you put in too much RAM, you can actually slow down your computer that way too. Granted, that's way too much.
Yeah,
I'm talking like people who are trying to put almost 200 gigs of RAM in it. It's not feasible.
You still really don't need more than 32. Not really.
Yeah, 32 is a good sweet spot right now for a general purpose computer with gaming as one of the aspects. You highlighted it there briefly. I put a website in the chat there, pcpartpicker.com, where you can go there and you can decide different builds. And what's nice about that is it will also detect compatibility issues. So if you put a case in there and then you put a motherboard or a GPU that's too big for the case, it'll be like, no, this isn't going to work. Or if you put a motherboard in there that only takes Intel CPUs, but you put in an AMD CPU, it'll be like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Did you notice it was hard to jam in there?
and so that's a good way to pick out your parts. Plus, it links to several different websites that you can price from, because it'll price it out for you. It'll so you can look at what the price is on Amazon versus on Newegg or a couple of other websites as well. So that's a great resource for working on what parts you want to use. So.
All right, I will definitely check it out. I've always always wanted an Alienware computer ever since they came around.
I bought one.
Okay, do they still hold the original? I know they got bought out by Dell or something to do with Dell.
Yeah.
Are they
they are bought out by Dell.
But are they still the Alienware? Like, does their name hold up? Is it really a good computer?
I think you pay a premium for the name.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I bought an Alienware Mini. The R2, I think, is R2 Alpha is, I think, what the model number was. And so it was a very small form factor, like literally that big or that tall and maybe that long. And it was great at the time, like it worked fine. But I outgrew it because it did have a discrete graphics card in it, but it wasn't that particularly powerful. And I started to need to do more with like BlueStacks, and the virtualization hardware just wasn't as robust. I still use it though. I've got an SSD in there with plenty of memory, and I use it as my retro station.
Yeah. Well, now, are you looking for a tower or a laptop?
Tower. It'd be here in the studio.
Because at least, and this could just be a misconception on my part, but when I think Alienware, I think laptops. I don't generally think desktops.
They make some great gaming laptops.
So, but yeah, if you're wanting, there are several companies there that out there that will sell you a pre-built, and if you wait for them to go on sale, there's a subreddit that I look at that focuses around parts, Let's see if I can find it real quick. But it build PC sales. So /r/build PC sales, and you can keep an eye on there for different parts when they go on sale. But every now and again, they'll also just post the pre-builts, and you've got an advantage that a lot of people don't have because you have a micro center that's relatively close to you.
Oh yeah,
Micro centers are yes, you do. Micro centers are awesome when it comes to buying parts on the cheap, but they don't generally ship stuff. You have to go to a physical location and get it. There are some things that they will ship, but by and large, most of their inventory is in-store purchases only, but it goes at a pretty steep discount from time to time.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Luckily, the closest Micro Center to me is a little over an hour away because they just had a big filament sale.
Yeah, depending.
I don't know what was more nerdy, you and Joe arguing about red vines versus Twizzlers, or the jealousy in his voice when I go, "Do I?" He goes, you do.
Yes.
That was a very deep nerd jealous rage there. So, but all right. Well, that's good advice. I hope it helped the audience because it definitely helped me.